Some of the fondest memories of our childhoods were shaped by watching television in the evenings, and Ben 10 has to be at the top of the list of these cartoons. While he was initially introduced as a 10-year-old, Ben 10's life took a crazy turn when he discovered the Omnitrix and gained the ability to turn into different aliens. Over the course of his story arc, he mastered these transformations and gained popularity, not just in his hometown, but all over the world and the universe. Today, we'll be taking you through his story arc, and also explore his alien forms and physiology. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Ben Tennyson? How did Ben get the Omnitrix? Initially, Ben was a 10-year-old kid in Bellwood, where he struggled to make friends at school and was often bullied by his classmates. However, things took a turn when he went on a summer vacation with his cousin Gwen and his grandfather, where they camped in the woods and witnessed a strange crash. As Ben investigated, he discovered that a capsule had crashed from space and even stumbled upon the Omnitrix. Since he had no idea that this watch-like device held so much power, he fidgeted with it when it attached itself to his wrist and refused to budge. While he was scared at first, he soon realized that the Omnitrix could be used to transform into different alien creatures, and that he could use it to become a superhero. While he initially started out with arresting petty criminals, he soon turned his attention towards supervillains, such as Dr. Amino, Kevin 11, and an alien warlord named Vilgax, who was determined to get his hands on the Omnitrix to dominate the world. While Ben was initially selfish about using the watch for his personal gain, he eventually managed to defeat Vilgax, among other menaces, with some help from his allies such as Gwen, Myax, and even the creator of the Omnitrix, Azimuth. What does Ben Tennyson look like? In his initial appearances, Ben appears in the form of a 10-year-old with brown hair, green eyes, and a skinny posture. In the original series and the Omniverse, Ben wore a black and white striped shirt with green cargo pants, black and white sneakers, and the Omnitrix on his left wrist. On the other hand, he wore a black t-shirt with the number 10 printed on it, and blue jeans in the Alien Force and Ultimate Alien series. In the Omniverse, Ben wore a black shirt with green stripes and a white 10 printed on it, with cargo pants and the Omnitrix. In some episodes, Ben wore a blue helmet, an orange life jacket, several swimsuits in a variety of colors, and a yellow raincoat in occasional appearances. What are Ben's powers and abilities? Ben was known for his impressive reflexes, and he could easily dodge incoming blaster attacks, Sunder's axe attacks, Tummyhead's laser blasts, and Zed's lunges. He could leap high in the air, and even underwent training at the Plumber's Academy. He was known for having an impressive memory, and he remembered all kinds of tiny details, such as the rune symbols engraved on the entrance of interdimensional realms. He was also skilled at using hoverboards and holographic simulators, which required a lot of intensive training. On this note, he was a proficient gunsman, a skilled swordsman, and relatively good at snowboarding, driving, and even piloting. During his high school years, Ben dabbled in sports such as baseball and soccer, and even tried his hand at mastering instruments such as the electric guitar. How strong is Ben Tennyson? Ben was quite a strong character, and he had trained in various forms of martial arts and street fighting techniques that helped him establish his strength in a one-on-one face-off. He managed to hold his ground against Pierce, and even underwent a lot of karate training with Gwen. In addition to this, the Marquess of Queensberry taught him how to box, and he also learned many fighting techniques from the Kangaroo Commando. All of this combined to make him a powerful force of nature, capable of defeating all kinds of opponents. Does his transformation hurt? Ben has explicitly described these transformations as taking a big stretch in the Omniverse and feeling as if he were inside someone else's body. However, fans assume that the transformations might bring some discomfort or pain, especially if we observe the way Ben closes his eyes mid-transformation. However, this just might be the case when he was initially getting used to the process, and there's a chance that he got used to them with some practice. During the Cannonbolt transformation, Ben seems to feel a lot more discomfort than usual, as he contorts his eyes and has a slightly painful expression on his face. In this way, we can also conclude that some alien transformations are more painful than others, and the intensity of the pain varies based on the alien DNA. He also smiles when he transforms into Ghost Freak or Stinkfly, which is a stark contrast compared to his transformation into Blitzwolfer, which required some optimization and resulted in some pricking here and there. What aliens can Ben transform into? While the Omnitrix enables Ben to transform into a variety of forms, some of his most popular appearances are as follows.
This would be so cool if it weren't so not cool.
Heat Blast. Known as the Omnitrix's DNA sample of a pyronite from the star known as Pyros, this variant was best known for his ability to generate and absorb fire. As Heat Blast, Ben appeared in the form of a plasma-based humanoid alien whose body was composed of hot plasma and dark red volcanic rocks. He was also about 7 feet tall, and he had an oval-shaped body and a tongue that was created out of fire. In addition to this, his collarbone resembled a volcano that generated a fiery aura in the form of his face instead of having eyes, nose, or ears like regular human beings. This was considered to be one of Ben's most versatile forms, as he could generate and influence the movement of fire, create fireballs, and even absorb heat without suffering any damage. Forearms. Introduced as the Omnitrix DNA sample of the Tetraman from Koros, Forearms was essentially a humanoid alien. When Ben underwent this transformation, he appeared as a 12-foot-tall alien with developed muscles, 2 arms that taper off into 4-fingered hands, and 4 eyes. He typically wore a white t-shirt, black pants, and gloves, along with the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. His primary power was his enhanced strength, and he was capable of lifting heavy objects, punching through metal and other substances, and even detonating the Omnitrix. He can also produce a sonic clap that can create shock waves, redirect glass, or subdue fires. But his extra muscle mass sometimes slowed him down and made him an easy target. XLR8. Known as the Omnitrix DNA sample of a Kinesillaran entity from the planet of Kinet, Ben transformed into a semi-armored velociraptor in this form. He had gray rollerballs instead of feet and a black helmet that consisted of his skin and some parts of his skull. He also had cyan skin, piercing green eyes, black lips, gray fins on his back, and a blue and black tail. In this form, Ben's hands and feet tapered off into claws, and he was known for running at speeds of about 888 miles per hour. He could move around so fast it seemed like time had slowed down, and his speed allowed him to create vortexes, think at an accelerated speed, and even go back in time. However, he had some weaknesses, and his speed did not do him a favor on surfaces such as ice or adhesives. Diamond Head. Known as the Omnitrix's DNA sample of a Petrosapien, Diamond Head hailed from the planet of Petropia. In this form, Ben was a silicone-based entity whose entire body was created out of blue and green crystals. In addition to this, he had 4 crystal shards poking out of his back, and a sharp head with yellow eyes, and semi-translucent skin. He was best known for his ability to shoot crystals and manipulate the atomic structure of his body, and his physique best resembled a prism that refracted most lasers and attacks. Moreover, Ben could absorb the energy from incoming attacks in this form, and he was quite durable and immune to the effects of aging. However, he was at risk of shattering and cracking in case someone exerted copious amounts of force, or used sonic vibrations to eradicate him. Upgrade. Hailing from Galvan Prime's moon, Galvan B, Upgrade was the Omnitrix DNA sample of the Galvanic Mechamorph. He was a black humanoid made of liquid metal with a purple body and violet stripes that ran through his body. In Ben's imagination, Upgrade had the body of a sumo with a T-shaped torso, and he first appeared in an episode titled Freaky Gwen Ben. Since he was not entirely solid, Upgrade often switched between a gelatinous and liquid form, and he could even reshape himself to ensure that any attacks coming his way could pass through a hole in his body. He also had built-in nanotechnology that allowed him to merge with any piece of technology and turn into an advanced futuristic being. He had an impressive hold over all kinds of gadgets and technological phenomena, but he did have a weakness to electricity and magnetic fields. Ghost Freak. Introduced as a phantom, ghost-like alien with a gaseous appearance and gray skin, Ben had removable skin in this form. He also had white and black striped tentacles underneath his skin, which was essentially a manifestation of the Omnitrix's DNA sample of an ectoneurite alien from the planet Anerphaetos. At some point, Bad Ben also transformed into Bad Ghost Freak and had a similar appearance, except that his body was mint green colored. As Ghost Freak, Ben often acted radically and went out of his way to intimidate his opponents, and Ben often ended up feeling increasingly uncomfortable while transforming back to his regular self. However, he gained the ability to manipulate his protoplasm and turn himself into an intangible force of nature. Sometimes he could pass through people, let objects phase through his body, or even possess other bodies to make them transparent or control their movements. However, his protoplasm served as his biggest weakness, and would be unable to turn intangible once it was solidified by an opponent. Cannon Bolt. Known as the Omnitrix DNA sample of an Arborian Pelorota from the planet of Arboria, Ben turned into a bulky, broad-shouldered alien with yellow armor in this form. He also had white claws growing out of his paws, green eyes, and sharp teeth. In some appearances, he wore black boots with pink lines and a purple wig and seemed to have 4 green star-shaped tattoos on his armor. In this form, Ben gained the ability to curl into a ball and move around at great speed, in addition to having enhanced strength, reflexes, balance, and dexterity. However, he had trouble controlling his direction once he gained momentum and started rolling around. Wild Mutt. Hailing from Vulpin, the Wild Mutt was the Omnitrix DNA sample of a Vulpimancer. When Ben transforms into this variant, he appeared in the form of a gigantic orange mutt with no facial features or tail. He typically stood on all fours and had several spines all over his body, in addition to a strong sense of smell and 3 gill-like nostrils on either side of his neck. In this form, Ben gained a heightened sense of smell, hearing, and taste, superhuman athletic skills, and sharp claws that could severely injure anyone in his way. However, he lost his ability to communicate and could only growl and hope that people around him knew what he meant. Ripjaws. Known as the Omnitrix DNA sample of the Piscis Volin, Ripjaws can be best described as a humanoid anglerfish. In this form, Ben had aquatic traits similar to alligators, eels, leeches, anglerfish, and sharks, and he could switch between a fishtail or legs. He also had a phosphorescent light on his head, pale gray skin, and webbed feet and gills. In this form, Ben could rip people apart with his jaws and spiky teeth, but he could only function well underwater or in cool temperatures. Way Big. Finally, we have the Way Big, which was the Omnitrix DNA sample of an alien race known as a Tucustar. In this form, Ben appeared as a giant humanoid entity, with a large frill on his head and blade-like tentacles on his shoulders. He also had white fins on his elbows and spikes all over his waist, and red stripes all over his body that were created out of an unknown cosmic material. Ben also gained the ability to shoot powerful cosmic rays that could disintegrate entire planets, and he was powerful enough to throw objects into planets' orbits. What weaknesses does Ben have? Some of Ben's weaknesses are quite understandable given his human origins, such as his lack of attention span, which often lands him in troubling situations. He also has trouble navigating places, and his teenage impulses often get the better of him and stir up chaos. Ben also has a fear of peacocks and clowns that can be used against him, and he's vulnerable to human ailments, viruses, and hypnosis practices. He was also vulnerable to corrodium, which would mutate his physiology unless he transformed into an alien to prevent any exposure to it. He can be easily defeated by opponents who use his allergy to peanuts, electricity, or sedative quills to subdue him. While the Omnitrix is a powerful device, it often went into timeout, and Ben was rendered powerless until he switched to an alien form before the device stopped working. He was also at a huge disadvantage whenever he transformed into a new alien form, as it took him some time to figure out its advantages as well as its weaknesses. Paired with his impatient nature, this lack of awareness about his alien form's weaknesses often landed him in trouble, and he eventually recalibrated the original Omnitrix to gain complete access to the alien's powers database. What is Ben's relationship with Gwen and Kevin? Ben was raised by Carl and Sandra Tennyson, and he often talked about how they raised him to become a good person. Besides them, he also looked up to Ken Tennyson as a role model, but his most significant relationships were with Gwen and Kevin. Initially, Ben and Gwen had a long-standing rivalry over the fact that they were born on the same day, but this petty grudge was eventually absolved. Even though they refused to take vacations together as kids and bickered at any given opportunity, they did care for each other, and Ben often went out of his way to get Gwen out of trouble. During the Alien Force story arc, they were about 15 years old when they cleared the bad air between them and even considered each other to be their best friends. On the other hand, Ben initially partnered with Ken after meeting him at a total zone, despite Gwen's warnings against him. They were soon caught by the police, and Kevin influenced Ben to rob a train when Ben realized that the train was full of people who might end up dead. While Ben stopped the train collision, Kevin went on to orchestrate more such plans and often tricked Ben by claiming to have changed. During the events of Alien Force, Ben and Gwen discovered him as he was trying to make an illegal deal with the Forever Knights and the DNA Aliens, and asked him for his help in defeating the DNA Aliens. Even though Ben was skeptical at first, Kevin pulled a solid and helped them in this mission, which strengthened their friendship for ages to come. Besides Kevin, Ben also had allies such as Azimuth, Professor Paradox, Jimmy Jones, Rook Blanco, and Skurd. Was Ben always a hero? While Ben went on to attain hero status across the universe, he was initially just a 10-year-old boy with much growing up to do. He wasn't equipped to handle such responsibility from a young age, and he was quite selfish and cocky. He would go out of his way to demand attention and handle situations immaturely, often getting into trouble with his parents and other adults. He would also use his newfound Omnitrix powers for selfish reasons, such as searching for special cards and cereal boxes instead of putting them to use for the betterment of society. Even when he started helping others, his attitude toward it was quite flawed, as he saw this as a way to earn praise without any real concern for those who needed his help. However, this soon changed, as he revealed himself to be a good-natured, caring, and heroic individual who risked his life on numerous occasions to save others. This helped him gain recognition and rise to fame, which sometimes got to his head and prompted him to act arrogantly. He did start realizing this pattern soon enough, and didn't shy away from taking responsibility and fixing his relationships with others. As he grew older, Ben learned how to adapt to situations, behave maturely, take accountability, and also serve as a good leader to his allies. He also continued to sacrifice himself for others, and his good nature extended to his enemies. if he realized that they were in a tough spot and needed to be rescued. Professor Paradox once stated that Ben had a knack for making the right choice at the right moment, but even then, his violent and aggressive side did come out from time to time. He also had a hard time trusting people, especially after he'd been betrayed on numerous occasions. However, he was quite a remarkable superhero, and he could be quite resourceful and attentive, even if he gave off the impression that he was not focused. How does the Omnitrix work? Also known as the Omnimatrix, the Omnitrix was a watch-like gadget that was typically found on Ben's wrist. The entire franchise is set around the functions of the Omnitrix, as it grants the user the ability to transform into 10 different alien forms. It was essentially a portable library of intergalactic genetic information that enabled the user to change their own DNA at will to transform into these alien life forms and gain their abilities. While Ben made great use of the Omnitrix to embark on numerous adventures and save lives, it was eventually destroyed and replaced with the Ultimatrix. What are the alternate versions of Ben Tennyson? For starters, Ben Tennyson existed in the Prime continuity for most of his story arc, but he did have some alternate versions that were spotted across timelines. Ben 10,000 was one of Ben's future selves from an alternate timeline, where he was a full-time hero, and there were 3 more heroes by the same name who all existed in different future timelines respectively. Other versions included Ben from the Robot continuity and Ben 23, a hero and former mogul who hailed from Dimension 23. One of these versions, called No Watch Ben, had no access to the Omnitrix, while Ultimate Ben and Alien Force Ben were the lead protagonists of Ben 10 Ultimate Alien and Ben 10 Alien Force respectively. Some of his other versions hailed from the Omniverse Homage Dimension, Dimension 12041.5, Maximilian's Dimension, and the Race Against Time timelines. Ben also had some alternate evil personas, such as Mad Ben, Bad Ben, Benzaro, Nega Ben, Evil Ben, and Eon. Marvelous verdict. With that, we've explored Ben 10's entire story arc, from the time he first obtained the Omnitrix, to his later adventures and transformation into alien forms. While he was a naive kid at first, he truly honed his skills and powers to make a name for himself across the universe. We hope you enjoyed exploring his fascinating journey with us, and do share your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!